Yourself in the mirror on the restroom door. Voices in her head that mirror what she's heard before.
Hey beautiful people, it's your girl Shakima. I'm just stopping in for today's celebs chat. So I'm pretty much looking to revamp this whole thing because I wanted to be able to sort of like give you guys an insight into who I guess I am as a person outside of just doing readings for you guys. And the celebs chat was a way for me to be able to engage with other aspects of my personality because I'm a multifaceted being. And just a quick announcement, I guess. At the minute, I guess celebs chat is going through a overhaul. I'm actually going to be able to, because I'm not really up to date on current events, if I'm completely honest. I live in my own little bubble, and that bubble, I guess, is pretty much determined by the work that I need to do as and when. So it's difficult for me to keep up with pop culture, so that's not going to work for us, guys. This relationship that we're trying to building, that's not going to be the way that we do it. But what I did decide to do, so as you can probably tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about Basketball Wives. So I'm going to basically utilize this segment to review just different shows, I guess, that I watch. I love a little bit of reality TV, and the truth is I actually utilize it for psychoanalysis. So that's pretty much what I'm going to utilize this space for. For those of you guys who are just like, why can't she just get on with the video? Look, we're having a moment to be able to get into that. We're not just going to go and sip tea automatically, okay? But what I do want to say to you guys before we get into everything, definitely be sure to let me know what you think of this new sort of switch up that I'm doing. Comment down below, and if you like my vibe, subscribe, okay? All of that awesomeness out of the way. The title of this particular video is OG projecting her own colorism issues? Because that's the topic that we need to have, especially with the current climate and what's going on in society at the minute. I think we need to have the conversation about the OG and Evelyn topic in I guess a different layers. We need to sort of go into the layers of the spectrum that's sort of taking place. So I want to have that discussion with you guys, just to sort of see a little bit where our minds are at. And I've got my own personal perspective, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of my psychoanalysis from what I've observed, because my mind's actually just been talking about this situation literally for the last few days. So I've been out of the reality game for a good little second, right? Because I was like Netflixing. I was Netflixing and chilling on my lonesome, and it really you know, I just kind of like got out of the engaging with the external world for a little bit, and like I said, went into my bubble. What I would say now, sort of like breaking it down, because I know that I'm late to the game, guys, but I figured at least if I start on episode 3, we can see how this stuff unfolds, and that's why I actually was really drawn to do this video today, because I know that the next episode is coming out tonight, I think. I don't know what the details are in the States, but for the Knockoff Nigel website that I watch it on, I'm going to be able to see that tonight if things go accordingly to plan, but we'll see. Either way, you're actually going to get my review for that next week, so I know it's basically going to be sort of like a lag, and it's not going to be sort of like current, if you will. But in the same breath, I really just want to be able to like give myself some time to go through my psychoanalysis and see how my mind varies and I guess moves into different thoughts of trajectory with the psychoanalysis as well. So you know, when you rush something, sometimes we can prejudge a situation based on what's going on in the environment. So taking some time to be able to you know, let things brew and, you know, simmer as you process it actually gives you an opportunity to get a lot more insight and perspective. Note to y'all as well, that is something that I'm going to be utilizing this space for. I spoke about the fact that I do a lot of psychoanalysis on these reality TV shows to kind of just, you know, really observe the personalities of people that are engaging with each other, because I think they're engaging with their physical presence, being in the same space, but there are different personalities that are definitely taking place. We're a little bit bipolar. It depends on what day you catch us on. So it's great to see the different personalities that shows up. So that leads me to my next point for this video. We'll be talking about whether or not Evelyn is actually a colorist, so that we can unpack that as well. And then we'll basically just kind of like break down, you know, my observations of the ladies thus far and what I've basically seen. So stay tuned for all of that awesomeness, guys. Right, guys, so the first question we want to unpack is OG projecting her own colorism issues? Is that too big of a statement to make? I don't know, guys, because I'm like, you know, I just like to have open and honest and transparent conversations, so I like to speak about what I see. I know it's a very sensitive topic, so I'm going to try and be as thoughtful and tactful as I can be with it. But I want to see what you guys' perspective on the situation is. So definitely comment down below and let me know how you've observed the situation. And I guess for myself, why I decided to ask this particular question, because basically that's what I observed during my psychoanalysis of her. I observed the way that basically when I was watching the actual show, right, I just kept thinking like, wow, like this issue for OG goes really, really deep. Like, I wonder what is the thing that she needs to work on, where this is rooted basically in the core of her being. And I guess we're going to be able to see a little bit more of how that unfolds in the next episode. That's why I wanted to have this conversation with you guys at the minute. But I think for myself, what I observed, she made very, very valid points in terms of, you know, the difference between Afrocentric features and I guess more European defined features, right? Being a factor in what she's trying to express to people, and why Kristen basically wouldn't get where she's coming from because she has European features. I want to basically dispel that notion, which is why these are some of the I guess, because we're in court. Okay, and this is the celebs chats court, and we basically want to be able to sort of like determine, is she innocent or guilty? And to me, I'm kind of undecided. I'm sure that she is projecting. For me personally, I can see that she is projecting her own colorism issues and colorist ideologies, because the thing about it is, like, Kristen was clueless in terms of the points that she was making, not necessarily in a negative way, but I use that as my point of reference as well. Like, Kristen didn't actually know what that there were that many differences between them, because she thought that she was approaching the common ground, the commonality. Like she said, she felt like they were similar, sort of like shade of the melanin spectrum, and she wanted to be able to sort of like see where she was coming from, because, you know, it'd be interesting to see her perspective. Now, I like the way that Kristen actually handled the situation with OG. I think she was a little bit shady, sort of like after she went back to the girls and was like telling the story of what unfolded during the space with her. She was trying to be nice about it, but it was like, it was some sprinkling of shade, just a dash. And it was like, for OG, like, basically why I said that I wanted to dispel that is because the features that she was speaking about, you know, sort of like the more straight nose, the high cheekbone, sort of like the jawline structure, these things, actually, you get these things in Black people, you get these things in African people. These are very similar features, and common features, in fact, for people of Somalian and Eritrean descent. Like, that's generally just their features. So I think that there's still some miseducation on OG's part, based on misrepresentation, because I think that the information that's being given, because I watched the review of Richie Spice. I hope I'm saying his name right, because I'm not so great with name, guys. I literally have all the girls' names like written down on my notepad here. That's why I keep looking down. He was saying that he didn't really sort of like realize certain things. I've had those conversations. It generally, in all honesty, generally tends to be with people of African descent, because they're very deeply connected to their roots. And it seems as though what we're not sort of like having a discussion on when we talk about roots is that there are many different tribes in Africa, and they all have different features. So what OG is saying is quote unquote Afrocentric features, sort of a more flared nostril, puffy cheeks, not so defined cheekbones, all of these things. Like, that's not entirely true. It's just not entirely true. And I wanted to be able to sort of like touch in on that, because I feel like that's the basically that's the seed that she's holding on to basically feed this colorism thing that she's actually projecting. Now, I think she's going to go into the next episode and break down what trauma is actually projecting this. So whatever version of her, however old she was when she experienced whatever it is that she is going to speak about in the next episode, that is basically where we need to go and unpack this from at this layer of it. I say we, but I mean she. But I'm utilizing this as an opportunity for you guys to be able to understand how to do your work type thing. So that you can understand how your work, if unhealed trauma sort of goes on processed, how it can show up in your relationships, right? So it will be interesting to see what exactly it is that trauma is actually about, because that's her sensitive spot at the minute. That's her pain point. And that's basically where she's playing out this behavioral trait and mannerism from this place of insecurity. Now, I'm not saying that there's entirely no truth to the things that OG said, because she's also mentioned that Evelyn said the N-word a few times, and a bunch of other stuff as well, actually, that she sort of, about her calling her a monkey, all of these things. Now, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all, okay, because this is a conversation that I had with me, myself, and us. When I first saw OG, all of my feelings, like now, I actually wasn't too fond of her features, but I think that's because she didn't know how to work with what she had when she first came on the show, okay? And I can understand some of the things that the ladies had said, and it was constructive criticism, because look, like, she bossed up, she leveled up, she's like doing her thing out here, and it gave her an opportunity to get even more comfortable in her skin. But what I actually see sort of taking place is that the things that she's saying, that so this lawsuit situation that they've actually got going on, OG and Evelyn, that's taking place, I guess, due to something that Evelyn posted on her social media, which when I read it, I felt like it had nothing to do with OG, if I'm completely honest. I felt more like OG has her own insecurities, and she's actually projecting those insecurities, her poor heart. There's something so deeply rooted in there that we don't necessarily understand yet, because I don't think she understands it quite just yet. Because another thing that I observed from her as well, like, bearing in mind her career choice, right? She was a pro athlete, and she's actually still playing defense. It was interesting to see how she's engaging with the ladies when they speak about the topic, because she's very clear that these aren't her feelings. This is her experience of Evelyn and being in the environment. And I'm gonna say this because I don't know what the environment is like, but I'm strictly speaking on this colorism thing that she's brought to the table regarding Evelyn. Because I think Evelyn is all sorts of other stuff. Ignorant, yes. A little bit, I guess, I get aggressive, and a tendency to sort of like be a hothead, fly off the handle, all of those things, yes. But a colorist, not so much. And when I say that, I mean in the context that OG speaking. I'm going to say this, like, as people of color, I think we all have some level of colorism. It's actually something that we're still working through as a people. But it's just on what level, again, in scale of the spectrum we're all sort of on. Are we projecting it? Are we internalizing it? Are we processing it? Where are we on the journey, right? And I feel like with OG's situation, the stuff that she had to say, yes, I understand that Black people do get offended when people who aren't perceived to be Black are actually saying the N-word, and I'm not taking anything away from her feelings of discomfort with Evelyn sort of like saying that around her, and I'm sure that probably made her feel some type of way. I, on the other hand, how can I put this? I know that there are people that aren't necessarily black, but they have a lot of black friends, and when they're engaging with their friends, that's just the lingo, that's just the way that they communicate, that's just the way that they are able to sort of like express their level of comfort, right? It's a term of endearment. So even like in an argument as well, like I find that a lot of Latinos actually utilize the word when they're having a discussion with a person. I think what we sort of need to sort of like get a clarity on is defining the word nigger and negro/nigger. I definitely think we need to sort of like have that conversation, because some people use the word nigger as a term of endearment, and the term that is very triggering for us, that we are basically entangling that endearment with, are the words nigger and negro. Okay, so we really have to be clear about how we're actually engaging with the parts of ourselves that has a tendency or likelihood to be triggered. And bearing in mind, like, the word nigger may be a trigger for us, well, more than likely is a trigger for us because of all of the things that our ancestors has experienced. So their genes, their genetics still sort of like lives within us, and based on the current climate of the of the world at the minute, it's a very, very sensitive and sensitive topic. That's why I felt like it's great that OG is utilizing the platform to be able to have this discussion. I just think that it's sad that Evelyn, who is, to me personally, innocent of this crime, she's guilty of so many other crimes. Like I said, being ignorant, being aggressive, being hot-headed, ill-mannered, you know, all of those things. I can say that she's guilty of those things. Is she guilty of being a colorist? Not in the way that OG is kind of like attacking the situation. I think that she actually is very triggered by a lot of her own insecurities about her skin tone and facial features and beyond, because, like, let's be real, I'm not being funny, but she stepped her game up. Okay, like, it was constructive criticism in terms of the things that they had all been through. And even this moment, I want to say this moment for Evelyn's actually her moment of God's grace. Like, she's gone through a process. She's kind of like, you know, sort of doing like press control at the minute. So she's gone through a process. Let's talk about Evelyn, and we can dive into the topic of whether or not she is actually a colorist, which I've pretty much basically sort of like told you my place on that so far. But I want to be able to kind of like break that down and see why. But yeah, for Evelyn, you know, she's going on this kind of like press control where she's kind of, I guess, altering the public image. And it's bringing her closer to God, whatever that is for her. But it was interesting to sort of like see her reaction to the whole situation. It was interesting because, you know, first, if you sort of like know the unfolding of this whole situation, like, she actually started to acknowledge that she's Afro-Latina, to basically connect to deeper roots within herself, right? I think what Evelyn said about what OG did on social media, comparing something about her granddad, I don't know what that's about, but I think that, again, this is just showing that they're having two different fights. Like, OG's fight is the fact that she has insecurities about her own skin tone, unfortunately. She basically has a lot of self-worth issues wrapped up within her skin tone, and that's the thing that she needs to be focusing on. Now, for Evelyn, how God's utilizing this, I guess, transformation to alter her as a person, I guess that will be seen over time. But, you know, for me, it's almost like she's also getting an opportunity to go deeper into herself. Like, she was able to, I guess, gain some deeper understanding about her roots and her being an Afro-Latina and what that means to her. And even at her later stages in life, she still gets an opportunity to learn new things about herself and new aspects about her, I guess, her culture and her genetics, you know, and I feel like that's the kind of season that we're living in as a collective anyways. But I think that there's a blessing in disguise for both of them. The work that Evelyn needs to do now is really understanding who she is as a person in terms of her roots, because OG seems to be very clear on what her roots are, right? She's very adamant. She's very living in conviction of that. She's very defensive. I mentioned earlier about her being a pro athlete. She's still basically utilizing a lot of that skill set and transferring the skill set of basically being passive aggressive in her sport and bringing that into her personal life. The great news about the situation or that dynamic with OG is that she actually knows how to feminize herself when it comes to her partner, which is good, because I think that it can be difficult sometimes with a feminine that has an overexerted masculine energy to, you know, submit. It's really quite challenging, but it's good to see that she's doing that work. So we're not going to just slay everybody. We're also going to sort of like acknowledge the positives in what's taking place as well. So that's great work that she's doing there. Now, for Evelyn, she definitely needs to do a lot more work, basically, on her ability to communicate. The thing about it is, and I'm going back now to the, you know, when they were having the discussion, I think it was last season, where they had the discussion about Chad, or Chosinko. Evelyn didn't actually bring up anything about race. OG did. And this is why I said that OG is actually the one with the colorist issue, because she's the only person that continues to antagonize this sense or feeling of inadequacy based on color. I don't doubt that the environment has very much systematic racism playing out, but the person that she's accusing, there's deeper layers to it for her to do her work on. For Evelyn, I think she's been sort of like good in her ability to deal with the situation. Like I said, it's given her an opportunity to connect to deeper roots within herself, and she's getting an opportunity to be able to even educate her children as she learns more about herself as well. They get educated as well, so that's ancestral healing for, you know, at least 2 generations. So that's a beautiful thing, right? That can't be a bad thing. She definitely needs to work on her ability to just fly off the handle sometimes, because that's basically what got her in this situation. That's how OG was able to basically roll it in for bait, because of her emotional sort of eruptions taking place on social media and playing out. And this is where we are, children, so stay off social media. Right? Wrapping up the space, I just want to do a quick little sort of like rundown of what I've seen of the ladies so far. Sort of bringing everything into this particular episode 3 of season 9, right? We want to start off with Shawnee now. Shawnee said when Kristen came back from that meeting with OG, she seemed very displeased, and she was like, I stayed up for this. So it's clear that she can understand that OG is actually very closed off, and this isn't necessarily about making amends or building any bridges. It's more about her being able to express and vocalize her feelings. And she needs to firstly be able to acknowledge that it's feeling. So I'm glad that Shawnee actually touched in on that fact as well, because if you can't acknowledge that the environment is making you feel some type of way, if you can't be vulnerable basically in this space, it's very, very difficult for anyone to be able to move forward. And I know OG had said that she was very open, but was she willing to be vulnerable? That is the question to be asked there. But Shawnee's done with Jen, man. Shawnee's like, you know what, I'm over it. Not in a bad way. It's just like, we cool. We ain't friends, but we cool. And I think she's made it clear now. Jen, see, now let's move on to Jennifer. Okay, Jen's a whole other topic, because I find that every season she comes in one way, and then it's like she gets broken down as the season sort of transpires. So she comes in and she's all like hype Jen, party Jen, I want to live my best life Jen, Zen Jen vibe. And it's like as the seasons go on, you see the same person that she is, a little bit of a coward, the type of person to basically say some shit, you know, throw stones and hide their hands, say some shit and then pretend as though, you know, oh, I didn't say that, and if I did say that, like, maybe you might have heard me wrong. So there's never really any sense of accountability, like they actually own it, and sit and live in that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how her season 9, I guess, transition unfolds. Going to Malaysia and having a look at her dynamic. So she had to have a really difficult conversation with her children, actually. And that was really interesting to observe because, you know, I was thinking to myself, like, whoa, like, what do you say to your kids when you have to have that conversation? And her dynamic is so real as well because, you know, her brother did get killed by police and his death has been, you know, it was an unjustified sort of like killing. So I can't imagine like what that must have been like, but I felt like she did a really good job. I felt like she handled the situation really, really well. How she's been showing herself this season to me thus far is that she's been showing some growth. It's interesting because I'm like thinking back to like tons of seasons ago when I first saw her and I was like, yeah, I could totally understand what Shawnee was talking about when she said that, like, they were just, there wasn't really much substance, but I'm seeing that she's now starting to be able to, you know, I guess bear the nectar of her fruits is how I'm hearing it. So it's nice to observe her in that dynamic. It was a little bit sad, I guess, to kind of see that she's still having to navigate through everything on her own. I'm praying and hoping for, you know, some sort of companionship for her that is going to be able to fulfill her as she continues to grow, because she seems to be doing an awesome job at what she's doing right now. The dynamic with her and Jackie this season has been interesting because, you know, like, even when Jackie came over, she kind of like left the room. She's just like, oh. She's basically having to work on the fact that she has her own doubts as a mom, and for her friends to basically be circulating certain gossip and rumors, it's brought up trust issues for her. It's something that's basically still offloading from her previous relationship with her partner, because like when we get trust issues in one area of our life, it actually also has a tendency to offset and overflow into other areas of our lives. So the mistrust that she's dealing with or has dealt with her partner, she's actually now navigating through that with the Jackie Christie situation, and I'm hoping that she can sort of like come to some sort of resolve by the end of the season. Because I actually like them together. I like Malaysia and Jackie together. Malaysia has a lot of patience for Jackie. I think that that's the issue. Because she's put up and tolerated Jackie for so long, she's actually come to the end of her tether and she's like, I don't know if I've got anything else to give to this situation right now, dude. I think I'm just gonna pause on that. Moving on to Jackie Christie herself. Jackie is always down for a ponderosa, which I love about her, actually. Yeah, Jackie this season to me is how she's been on past seasons. You know, she comes in and she's all about the peace vibe, definitely wanting to be able to bring everybody together, and then she ends up being the one falling out with people towards the end. So she may need to check her intentions. That's what I'd say to Jackie. She needs to stay connected to the root of her intentions, because she has a tendency to kind of like stray off a little bit, you know. But I like when she comes on these vibes of, you know, really being able to just try at least to bring everybody together, even if it doesn't work. Like, it's always like interesting and funny observing her in the process. It's actually like, it makes for good TV, I'll say that much. Wrapping up the space, I want to talk about Kristen and Phoebe, guys. Kristen, I spoke about her briefly. Do you know what? I definitely think that I saw some sort of growth with Kristen this season. The fact that she even wanted to have a conversation with OG to see where she was coming from lets me know that she was actually open. OG said she was open, but her body language was all closed off, guys. I don't know how to explain it to you guys, but she had so much tension, like, in her body. She actually wasn't that open. If you saw Kristen's clothing, like, one of her shoulders was out, so her, you know, her one of her sleeves, sorry, that's it, my word, guys. One of her sleeves were actually down, letting, you know, OG know that she's actually open to be able to receiving her. OG was basically hoping that Kristen was coming to have a different conversation. So I think that they were in a completely different place with the situation. I don't think Jackie delivered the message to great as well. That tends to be an issue for Jackie, which is why she keeps falling out with friendships. The way that she delivers messages and information seems to be something that she needs to work on as well. That's why her and Malaysia are having all of this shit that they're going through as well, guys. So she needs to check that. But back to Kristen, I felt like her body language was giving me, I am open to you. But she also was turned away from OG at the same time. OG was like outright not even facing Kristen, you know, but Kristen was facing OG. That's why I'm saying that Kristen was a little bit more open in her body language towards OG, but she was still trying to make sure that she was comforted within herself. So she was still doing a lot of self-soothing just by making sure that she was connecting to, I guess, her most private place, because she was kind of like, you know, protecting her heart. That's the side, I guess, that she was actually closing off herself. So kind of like protecting her heart, but I felt like it was more protecting her heart from the potential projections that she could have received from OG. And I'm speaking about spiritual warfare here, guys, taking things into a deeper layer of itself. So I definitely think that Kristen did a good job. What I would say is that she needs to check herself before she wrecks herself. When she's talking about, you know, the whole conversation that she had with OG afterwards, because she was throwing some gentle shade. It wasn't a whole tree, but it was at least a sunflower, girl, okay? And you cannot be doing that. OG will come for you, okay? And even worse, like, OG's fans will come for you. Like, and yeah. Considering that, like, she's utilizing the platform to speak on a colorism issue, like, you don't necessarily want to go there, because society is so sensitive, I guess, to that particular issue based on our own insecurities. If we're completely honest with ourselves, yes, we are dealing with systematic racism. That's an absolute fact. But we're also dealing with our own insecurities. That's what led us to the point of getting to where we are today. Decisions, guys. We have to be completely honest with ourselves, okay? Want to talk about Phoebe a little bit to close out this space, because she's on newbie. I don't remember the name of Lamar's ex-wife, to be fair. I don't know if she's his ex-wife. I'm not too sure. But I don't think, before I get into Phoebe, I'm going to wrap it up with Phoebe, but whilst I'm on the topic, I'll speak on her. I don't think that she was all hung up on Lamar as they're making it out to be. I don't think that that's where she was coming from. I don't think that that was her vibe. I think that she was actually sort of very much... I'll tell you how she was hung up on Lamar. Because I think that they're saying it in one way and she's trying to say, no, it's not that, because she's trying to acknowledge that it's a completely different situation, but she is still hung up on Lamar. She's still hung up on Lamar's tendency to disappoint her, to make promises that he can't keep, to basically, you know, not show up when she needs him the most. Like, those are the things that she's still needing to heal from, basically. And that's what I feel like this episode actually, you know, brought up to surface from my observation. I saw that she was basically dealing with a situation where, you know, he could potentially do all of those very same things to her children, to her son in particular. They've clearly obviously dealt with their own issues over the years, and I'm sure she knows more than anybody what she's been through. But it's like, at this point, she's kind of going through a process of really realizing that the children are at a place where they can basically vocalize what's going on, you know, and they can really sort of like feel it, they can really understand it, and they're no longer kids, basically. And I think she's being a mama bear, like she said, but she is sort of still dealing with her Lamar issues, her wounds from her relationship with Lamar, not necessarily in the way that the girls were making it out, or the way that she may have perceived them to be making it out, or maybe I perceived them to be making it out like she was hung up on him in terms of like romance and needing to let him go. That wasn't the situation. She's just still scarred from the things that he did to her in the relationship, and she's still trying to heal from those things. What I will say that she's doing positively, like, is her ability to basically just communicate with her children, let her son know that he needs to have a little bit more of a backbone with her ex-husband, with Lamar. But again, that's basically like just living vicariously. I think that she wished that she had a bit more of a backbone with him. So now she's like really firm and trying to ensure that the children are also, you know, in a position where they're going to be able to really benefit long term from whatever it is that she's really trying to help them to see. Just like in terms of personal development, you know, it's important to be able to speak up for ourselves. So I think what she's doing with the son is actually very, very important to how he'll engage with people later on in life. So that's a plus. Okay. Phoebe, she's given us a little bit more of her relationship this season. But what I do want to say is touching in on the situation that she kind of like experienced with the COVID thing, because that was like, I guess, her storyline for this episode. I'm glad to see that she, you know, took the time to be able to sort of like quarantine and not just go to the trip for the sake of being present for a check, because, you know, people do that. It's reality TV, right? And also, I feel like with her dynamic with the partner, like we've been sort of like seeing over this season, it's interesting to see that she's actually bringing a partner on, and it's interesting to see how comfortable she is with him. Actually, that's nice. You can see that they have like a long-term connection between them, and they've like really got a certain sense of each other's personalities, so that's good. But I mentioned before, she has like a very masculine energy, so I like the fact that her partner is a masculine energy who is also very soft in textures. That's the best way that I can express or explain his energy and tone. Like, he's soft with his tone, but he delivers it like a man, you know. And I think for a woman like her, that's what she needs. What I do see in that dynamic is that she has a lot of trust issues from that relationship that she's gonna have to work on, and vice versa, because he clearly also mentioned the fact that he felt like she was messing around with baby daddy, and you know, it's something that she felt like, how could you even think that? She's like, how could you even think that? So she needs to clearly work on her communication better. So, you know, sometimes like we love people, but we're not very good at showing or expressing it. So she needs to basically work on her ability to express herself and be vulnerable more in the dynamics of that relationship. And that's generally what you tend to find with a lot of overexerted masculine energy based feminines. So it'll be interesting to see if she lets us into more of the relationship space as well as the season goes on, but who knows. And yeah, that's pretty much everyone, guys. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to sort of like discuss with you guys in this space. So, you know, I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys liked this different vibe from me, because I'm really trying to basically like let my channel, because I'm clearly going through a channel reboot, as you guys can see, let my channel really sort of like give me an opportunity to express who I am as an individual, like in wholeness, basically, because this, like I said, there's so many layers to me. I'm so complex, and I want to be able to give you guys as much of me as possible. So yeah, I hope you guys liked it. If you did, definitely be sure to give me a thumbs up, guys. That way I know that you are appreciating the effort. And also just, you know, I know that you guys are actually liking my sharing. You guys are liking me, you know, coming in, being vulnerable, being open, being expressive. I say vulnerable because like I'm giving you guys an opportunity to see another part and layer of myself. So let me know how you guys actually receive this version of me, basically, is what I'm trying to say, guys. I'm trying to use my words. And on that note, I'm gonna love you guys and leave it there for you guys. Definitely be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more awesomeness. I'll see you guys in the next video. Mwah. Until then, take care, my loves.
They said to hold her back, they never seem to leave her head and tend to keep her mind at war. All the